Andor is the Star Wars story that no one asked for, but the Star Wars story that we all deserve. And now we finally come full circle with the story. This is I Have No Title, Not Much podcast. We're your hosts, Tyler.
And Chris.
And we are now on most major podcast platforms. So if you're listening to us on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe. If you're listening on any other podcast, give us a follow and a favorable rating if applicable.
Or if not, just 5-star it. Just hit that. It doesn't matter. Put a 5-star and then tell people not to listen. I don't care.
On to Andor. We finally come full circle with the Andor story with the seasons 1 and 2 and Rogue One.
Where we started.
Yeah.
Because Star Wars isn't Star Wars without prequels. Except these prequels came through for us.
I have to say, Andor was not originally on my radar. I don't think I even thought about watching it until you said something on the first season.
Yeah, well, I at the time, it was only by chance that I watched it. Because I didn't watch The Mandalorian when it first came out. I mean, it was after the Luke Skywalker scene before I watched any of The Mandalorian. I didn't care about that stuff. I was like, Boba Fett's my least favorite character. Like, I know he's everybody's favorite because he's got like one line and 15 seconds of footage in the original trilogy. I never understood that. I know I've gone on and on about this in previous things. Is that what you like? That's fine. That's cool. You know, like having a cool background character that you focus on. I liked Barriss Offee and Plo Koon. They got fleshed out in, you know, extraneous media, but not in the movies at all. And I thought they were cool looking and I really liked them and I'd hoped they did something with them. And then they did, which was actually pretty cool for me. And they did that for Boba Fett. So I hope anybody who is a fan of Boba Fett is a huge fan of that show. Seems like something you'd like. Anyway, I was finally digging in to all, like, everything, getting caught up. I think I was in between a lot of shows and there wasn't a lot going on, so I watched The Mandalorian. I was watching everything. I caught up on all the Clone Wars that I'd never watched, and eventually Rebels too, and then Andor came out, and I was like, I don't know. And I don't think I watched it initially, but, like, it looked good. Like, you know, when they tell you about it, I'm like, you know, doesn't sound good. But then I saw the trailer and I was like, this does look good. So I put that first episode on and I was hooked. And I was like, it got bad viewership. And I'm like, I get it. I get why that happened. But like word of mouth has got to do something for this. And then even this one, it was like, I think it started slow. Even the second season started slow. But then, man, did word of mouth hit. Or it must have. Or people were just like lagging on watching and they wanted to binge more of it. Because some people want to wait until they can watch all of it in one day or whatever it is that people do.
Yeah, because it's one of those things, it's like, I didn't put it together that was even the character from Rogue One for some reason. Because at the time, I think I hadn't watched Rogue One in a while.
Yeah.
And he wasn't the main character, so I wasn't putting that together.
I remembered him being in it less than he was.
Yeah.
Until I went back and watched it, and I was like, oh, he's actually like maybe the second main character, outside of Jyn. But Jyn is definitely our point of view. Like, he's already in the rebellion. He's a captain. We don't know how long he's been doing everything. And Jyn's like, I don't even want to do any of this. All of y'all, the Republic, the Empire, my dad, this kyber crystal that I have for some reason. Who knows why? Will we explain it? No. And then he's like, you know, rebellions are built on hope. And she's like, I'm going to repeat that and sound like I came up with it in front of a bunch of important people. Bitch. Of course, Andor did the same thing, but, you know, that other guy was dead. So he's just honoring his memory. That bellhop or whatever he was. Rogue One feels super weird. Like, everybody's saying how awesome it makes it feel, but it does feel. Have you watched it? I mean, like, not in general. I meant like in the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, I went and watched it last night.
It feels like a movie, you know, whereas like, because everything is so fast paced, there's no time to sit and be with these characters. And there's all these like dramatic movie shots and the transitions, and not to say that Andor doesn't feel that way. It's just like that feels like it's more cinematically connected to like the original trilogy in ways that like then it's connected to Andor. And it's not super jarring. I'm just saying that's just an aesthetic statement I'm making, that everybody has to be seeing this because it is so obvious. For the story stuff, I don't think there's anything there that's like too much, except for Andor saying like he's been in it since he was 6, and I am not going to be one of these people who's pointing out every plot hole. Listen, I listen to everybody is talking about this show, and everybody is, universally basically loving it. Some people are pointing out after they've had a little time to sit with it, they're pointing out some things they don't like, and they're missing one key element, but I will get to that.
I think as far as him saying that he's been in it since he was 6, that's a matter of interpretation and not so much a plot hole.
Yeah, it's really about whatever was going on on his planet, and it was since from before we actually catch up with him.
Because that's about the time the one lady kind of adopted him or whatever.
Kidnapped/adopted. Accidentally. Okay. So, if you're listening to this, you've seen all of Andor. We cannot do spoiler free. It's not, this is such a huge discussion. Everybody is talking about this. If we're your first stop on your Andor train, I don't know how you got here or what's happening with your life, but there's something that's gone horribly wrong. You need to watch Andor. Everybody needs to watch Andor. And if you're listening to us and you just aren't big into Star Wars, but for some reason you're listening to this because you just happen to click on it, or you've been listening to our stuff and you're a casual Star Wars fan, well, Andor is just good. You could take the Star Wars branding off of it, and it's actually just really good pacing, writing, acting, everything in it. Everyone universally, this has got to win awards, and it has nothing to do with that it's Star Wars or not. A lot of people are even going so far as to say it's the best Star Wars since Empire Strikes Back, what everyone universally agrees is the best Star Wars thing, the best single thing. So, given that, what's the first thing you want to talk about with this show?
That is a hard one.
Okay.
I think a good place to start those, especially since we're coming off of doing the 20th anniversary, look back on Sith. I kind of want to give Rogue One the same treatment with that a little bit, because just like Revenge of the Sith benefits from the Clone Wars series, I think Rogue One benefits from the Andor series in the same way.
Yeah.
Because Rogue One wasn't a bad movie. I'd put it top 5 Star Wars.
Yeah.
Even before Andor. But having a more emotional connection with those characters, and not just, we know the stakes and we know that they're going to get it out because obviously this is a prequel, but it makes the death of those characters more impactful because we've been with them this whole journey, and now we finally see, we know where this is going.
Yeah, so you take me right to the beach there, that final scene. And given that, I saw it before I rewatched this, and it had been a while since I'd rewatched Rogue One, but I went ahead and did it. And then me and Allison only watched the second season, and then we watched Rogue One. I told her I needed to rewatch it, but she didn't have to. She went ahead and watched it with me, but I said, at the end of the year, this year, I want to rewatch the whole thing start to finish, in one, not in one go, but over the course of a week or two, or however long it takes. But I saw somebody, maybe it was on an Instagram short, because I've not been able to find it. And this really pissed me off, because it was after the Bix storyline, or maybe even before that was resolved completely, I saw a thing that said, I think it was before it was resolved, that we see the fate of Bix. She has to die before the end of it, which I think we all thought it's going to be a death a week, if not more than one. All these characters are going to get picked off one by one, except for Mon Mothma and Cassian. Because the Cassian Jin pairing or flirtation or something would be disrespectful or would be out of character or whatever. And I was like, yeah, how's this gonna play? And then in watching the final episode, it's almost as if when he says she wouldn't be safe with me, and it's he's kind of letting go of that, letting go of her for her own good. Which I still feel that's kind of is what he was doing there, and feeling sorry for himself, and it sucks because he doesn't even know the full ramifications of what he's saying. And then I watched Rogue One, and they don't flirt. The movie is non-stop, and they are mission-driven. In fact, they're at loggerheads because she thinks he was going to kill her dad, which he was, and she's like, hey, don't try to deny it. And he's like, I don't have to. I was following orders, and guess what? I disobeyed those orders, and he died anyway. So
yeah, I think
by the end they hug.
Yeah, I think that last scene where they're embracing and holding hands.
It's gonna die. I don't.
Yeah, if you're watching it in a vacuum, maybe you could say we're throwing in some romance, but
no, because they don't. If we were about to die, there's a strong possibility I might hold your hand. If there was literally Watchmen style,
it's we know our fate's coming. and you don't want to be alone.
Nuclear blast is coming slow motion at us. Damn, like, you wouldn't hug a woman next to you? Oh my goodness, Cassian cheated on Bix. Whoever thinks this, go away. This is stupid. Like, repeat this to other people. Like, that's dumb. There is no flirtation. He just, the one thing he did was, like, come up from behind and, like, killed Krennic, kind of keeping her from being able to do that. There was no romance there at all. Maybe if there was another movie and they had lived, I could see them doing that, but that wasn't. And I just wanted to devote a little bit of time to that because that's seriously, whoever put that out there, I only saw a little blurb. Fortunately, it hasn't been repeated because I guess other people watched the movie and were like, that's not even there. So why? I don't get it. Okay, so one thing that like I said, one person I want to shout out is this guy named Generation Tech. I don't know his real name. If he has mentioned his real name, I haven't caught it. I don't remember it, but I've watched quite a few of his videos. I love his takes. Go listen to him. It's YouTube, Generation Tech. I don't know why he's called Generation Tech, but he does mostly Star Wars stuff, and he loves Andor. The stuff he talks about, some of it is like real world tangents and just listening to a really insightful guy. And sometimes he gets down to talking about high school bullying and how him and some friends of his put an end to that in his little microcosm, and when he was talking about Brasso. And that's all I'll say about that. Go listen to him because he had some really great takes on this show, and he seems like a good guy.
I mean, his Star Wars stuff in general seems
Have you listened to him too?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've not listened to his Andor stuff, but I watch his videos from time to time.
He only just came across my radar because of Andor in the past few weeks, so I've listened to some of his stuff. And of course, Screen Crush with Ryan Airy, whom I disagree with on some things. Not necessarily like Andor stuff. Everyone universally agrees on it, that Andor is basically good, except for the stuff with Cassian and Rogue One, maybe that was just that one person and I'm overreacting.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, there's more flirtation between Cassian and K2, but...
Yeah, and like... Chewit and they had weird names and I can't. Bodhi? The guy with the big ass gun?
No, Bodhi was the pilot.
Okay. What was the guy with the gun's name?
I don't know.
But like those two,
Yeah.
I mean, when people were like, these two were like a thing, right? I'm like, I don't see any problem with that.
Yeah, they seem like an old married couple.
They really
like
did.
They're over it.
Like there's some people who want like Magneto and Professor X to both be like 100% homosexual gay. And I think it takes away, sometimes you do need rock solid platonic friendships.
I think that's something that people need to realize, that you can have a platonic relationship that have that deep love and not be sexual at all.
Yeah, and I think that's one of them. These two guys, somebody was like, these two guys are totally gay. That's one that I'm cool with because that seemed like there was something there with that, and it was nice because they are older guys, and it did seem like they're past the sex phase of like a relationship, and they are like an old married couple. They might have just been an old married couple or been with each other so long that it has just become that common law. I don't know what the Emperor's stance on don't ask, don't tell or gay marriage is. It's probably not good though, so it's probably why they had to keep it a secret. So yeah, just remember, like, we have such toxicity in our culture. That's why I'm not throwing shade on gay marriage, gay relationships. I'm saying we have such toxicity in our culture that you either view it as gay and make fun of it. I think there's a lot of that there, like Bucky and Captain America. People are like, oh, these guys are gay, and like Professor X and Magneto. And I think it's like half the people want that to be a thing because they just want inclusion. They just want there to be more gay characters. And half the people, they don't really care. They're just making fun of it. It's just for a quick joke, and then they move on. And Nando V Movies, I think he legitimately, I'm not sure if he's gay or not. He might be. I don't know. I think he really just wants them to be gay because he wants inclusion and he wants them to be gay characters. But I think we need to see less toxicity and more like positivity with like platonic friendships that people can have. And I see a shifting to that. The other day, this is a real story. I was I was coming home from work. I was by my door, and the people who live next to me are like frat guys. I don't really know them. I don't really talk to them. They got a lot of people coming and going. I don't even know the faces of the people who live there because I see so many faces coming and going. And I see a guy getting into his truck, and the other guy's like going into the house, and he yells back at him, "I love you, man." And he's like, "I love you." And I was like, that's nice. But I get taken back to these other guys that I met. There's one guy that I worked with, and we worked with each other for about a year. The other guy was his best friend. They'd been best friends for several years. And I had very few interactions with the other guy that I didn't really know. And on like our third encounter, maybe, at work, no less, we talked for a minute, you know, just joking around because I don't really know him. He says goodbye to his other friend. He's going to take off. The guy that I know is staying at work. And they say, I love you to each other, and it's nice and sweet. And then the other guy says, I love you to me. And I don't reciprocate for one simple reason. You know, it's like they took it too far to the point where it's absurd. It's like you take out all the meaning if you just say it and it doesn't mean anything. And I'm not going to do that. I tell people I love them if I love them. I tell my friend Jeremy, when we part, we say I love you to each other. You know why? Because we've known each other 25 years and we're like family. So I want to see more positivity like that. And I think there was transition, a segue back in. There was so much platonic positivity in this show when Cassian shows affection for his male friends. And I really loved that, like, because we need to see more of that, because then maybe we'll get to a point where we don't make the, like, obligatory gay jokes and it's stupid. And then we can get past, like, hating women because women exist, and that, like, you can have a strong female character and you don't have to make her be a bitch, you know, because I think that's part of the reason some of the stuff has failed in Star Wars is, like, they don't know how to write women. They want to make Star Wars things for women, but they don't know how to write them so that they can be universally liked. And there's a reason, if you look at this show, why it is universally liked. There are some strong female characters, and there are some strong male characters that aren't afraid to show affection and vulnerability. And guess what? There's like one white guy, and there were a couple of white guys in this show. One of them in the second season gets killed pretty early. Nobody's talking about this show being woke. Nobody. And you know why? Because it's just good. That's it. If anything, people are talking about how Republicans aren't the empire somehow. But whatever. But nobody's talking about it being woke. And this is the wokest show there is. There you go.
I think that's the true difference there is
what we've been talking about for 2 years.
Yeah. It's like with everything else, it's not that they can't. It's that they've not been. They've not even tried. And they've done inclusion for inclusion's sake and have no substance.
Yes, you can make something be inclusive and just also write it good. Yeah. You don't have to make it feel like it's in your face or what have you, which I think a lot of other things have done. This one is just, it's more focused on storytelling and character. And you could swap out races and genders for so many of these characters and it wouldn't matter at all. Cassian could have been black or white, or he was Latino, Eastern European or anything, and he still would have been the same character. Same with Luthen. Luthen could have been played by, he's got the name, it's like it wants to flow off my tongue, and but the guy who played Moff Gideon, it's like, he's in that commercial for Netflix where he's talking about Wednesday's dance. Have you seen that? Has anybody seen that? It's the best when he does the Wednesday, he starts doing it. Anyway, I love that guy, and I can't think of his name. Anyway, Luthen could have been played by that guy. No difference. So, write better. This is another segue. So, I think, and this is the one negative thing I'm going to say about it. I'm going to throw this in here, and then we can get back to absolutely loving Andor. A lot of people are talking about, like, why can't we have this in Star Wars all the time? Is this the future of Star Wars? And honestly, yeah, it probably is, because they're going to learn the wrong lessons from this too. And by that I mean, people have talked about, is Star Wars better without lightsabers, without the mythology? Is it better if it's this? Let me also remind everybody, with as good as this was, like, how much did you laugh? How much did you have fun? It was gut-wrenching. That's drama. That's cinema. Sometimes it's okay to have fun and get your action figures out and create your own little mini stories, like what Dave Filoni wants to do. Dave Filoni, yes, does need to get his act together and write some better stuff, better fun stuff, so we can have both sides. I do want more of this, but I also want more lightsaber stuff. I love a good sword fight. Do I think, like, Star Wars is better without it? I think it just so happens that the best things have been written just happen to not do, because people don't know how to do it right, like perfectly. The stuff with the lightsabers. So I was watching this thing, several things. So it's out there, and the sources are, it's Tony Gilroy basically, and various like scripts and the previous, like the rewrites and stuff. You can look this up. For Rogue One, Jin's mom is dressed as a Jedi and gives her that kyber crystal. Go back and look. Apparently, it was supposed to be at least in the subtext that she was a Jedi and that she was in hiding, and that Galen Erso met her, they got married and whatever. If you go back and look, it's like, oh my God, that's obvious. But it's in the background. And it's like, when you think about that, if you go back and it's like, why was Jin so lucky? How did she make it this far? Because she was, being driven by the Force. She was, the child of a Jedi. We don't really know anything about, but that worked perfectly for that movie, to just have it be in the periphery. And in the original trilogy, what made us want the prequel so badly is the mystery box element of it. We see people who are untrained or really old, and it's like the myth of it, which we've talked this to death. Like, what were the clones? Was the Clone Wars? What was the Jedi Order like at its maximum occupancy / power? And we want to see that. And when we got to see that, some of it was kind of cool and some of it was kind of hokey. And you just settle in, and nothing's going to match what you had in your head for 20 years if you were alive in, 77. So with this, it brings that back, that feeling of like the Jedi are out there somewhere. Most people don't even believe it. I mean, there's people who under hypnosis in real life can do things to the point where people don't even believe in hypnosis. There are monks who spend all day meditating and can do things with their bodies that people don't believe, whether they choose not to believe it or just like, no. It was commonly believed that we could not run a mile in under 4 minutes because just nobody did it or could do it. So it just became the common belief, like humans have a max speed and that's it, until somebody broke it. And then everybody broke it. And not everybody. I couldn't. But a lot of people started breaking it like one after another after that. Once that, it was like the area of the map got unlocked and we got like new skins featured on our game board. So given that, we can have better Star Wars, like consult, like hire Tony Gilroy. By all means, get him and Dave Filoni to work together and say like, I want to do something with lightsabers. And I know that sounds trite, ridiculous and dumb, but it's like, I want to do but that's what it boils down to. You're dealing with the mythology aspect of it or boots on the ground aspect of it. Like, these are the real people, the espionage stuff. And then the other thing is like the higher, like Luke Skywalker is literally going to fight an embodiment of the Force and his sister and his dad, which is a thing if you didn't know. Except the sister died and then Obi-Wan said, we'll be fine if we stick together, and they didn't stick together. So they weren't fine. So like, and then going to like the world between worlds and like all this like crazy high concept, like supernatural stuff. That stuff's the coolest thing for me. And yet they're not writing it as well as they could. Some of it still gives me goosebumps. But you know what else gave me goosebumps is Luthen's speech. And then Luthen quickly became one of my, like, up there with Luke Skywalker with me for, like, how important he was. And I loved how they portrayed other people's takes on him. Because I hated him. And I love that Tony Gilroy made them put in there. When at the end, Cassian came in, it was like, you run him down after this all you want, but don't you dare stand here and question his legitimacy when he dedicated his life to this, and you've sat in a Senate seat and then eventually moved planets, came over here, and now you want to act super important? And then even like that high-ranking soldier guy's like, Captain, calm down. Do you know who you're talking to? He's like, I've killed people for less than this. So I want to talk about Luthen. Well, no, let me finish this thought, because Disney will learn the wrong lesson, obviously, because they only look at money. So the next thing that they announce that's new is going to be something with Ryan Gosling about him being a fighter pilot, and it's going to be like this. It's going to be super serious, no funny business. It's going to be like Blade Runner.
Why can't they take the lesson that what everyone loves about this is compelling story and character work?
Could you imagine? See, here's something that I wrote in a comment section somewhere where, it's a big tent. Just, we'll leave it at that. It's a big tent. Star Wars has enough room for this, and Ahsoka, I just also want Ahsoka's story to be good. And that's the next big thing that I'm looking at to be like really good, you know. Mandalorian had like this lighthearted feel. It almost felt like Zorro from the 60s or whenever, the 50s or 60s, that old TV show that like it's an action adventure thing that's fun. Mm-hmm. Andor was never fun. And that's okay. I'm saying that's okay. I'm saying I love it, but we have to be serious. It was not fun. It was gripping and gritty to watch and really hard to stay up late and watch and then go to work the next day without being like, so please don't destroy. Make Ahsoka good. Like, just write it better. Like, bring Luke Skywalker into this. Make Sebastian Stan Luke Skywalker and, you know, let him have some fun and be serious and also be good. It can be a lot of things. Okay, so Luthen. Everybody knows that I really wanted him to be a Jedi. And a lot of people were really against there being anything like that in this because I think they felt like not having a lightsaber in this is what's keeping it good. And again, this is humans learning the wrong lesson from this. Like, not having a lightsaber in, if like Chewit, or however you say his name, the blind guy from Rogue One, if he somehow had a lightsaber and busted that out at the end of it, instead of using his stick, would that have changed the story any at all? They would have just been like, somebody would have had a throwaway line that was like, I didn't think those weapons existed anymore. And he would have said, an old remnant from a friend long ago or something. And that would have been it. And it would have been like, oh, that's cool. Just like when Luke was, you know, handling a lightsaber for the first time. It's like, what even is this? What's it capable of? A bunch of people who don't know the history of it and barely believe it. So I was like, look, if Tony Gilroy puts a Jedi in here, it might just be your next favorite bit of Jedi lore you don't see coming because you think having that in here is what's going to make it bad. Like, no, more lightsabers doesn't equal bad just because some of the prequels were bad.
To me, it wasn't that it would make it good or make it bad. That's just not the story they were telling.
Right. And that's the thing, is that's not where he wanted to go. But he did leave some space. And I know that people are not going to like what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Okay, so Luthen, I felt firmly, like, and a lot of people did. If you look about, like, type in Luthen Jedi, that's it on YouTube. You'll see a lot of videos from 2 years ago. Plus, when the first season came out, a lot of people were speculating Luthen's Jedi. And if you look at the early videos from this season, some people were still talking about it. Now, he was not shown to be. In fact, he was shown not to be from not that long ago. Like, I thought we were going to get, like, Cassian kind of flashback episode of like Luthen's whole life, and we were gonna see wherever he came from, his family. And the more the show went on, I was like, they're not gonna do that. However, he's got all this stuff, and it was with like his gallery, you know, and it kind of comes down to him having the knife and being so protective about it. And then that scene where they show Cassian looking at it and like from like below, and then he like puts it back together, which is foreshadowing about how Luthen's going to eventually die. But I'm like, why would they make such a big deal about that knife if that's not the knife he's going to use? Why did he give Cassian a kyber crystal and then tell him like, it'll always be worth more to me? Like, what's the significance? As much as I don't like J.J. Abrams' like mystery box approach that really worked on this, because there's a lot of loose ends, like Cassian's sister. We don't really know, you know, like she's said to have died, but we don't know 100%. Then there's space. We didn't see her body, you know, and that's part of it. That's the gnawing ache in him, is that like he doesn't know for sure. And that's what keeps him going. Like, if I do one more mission and save one more person, maybe it'll get me one step closer or make her forgive me in the afterlife. One of the two, you know? So with Luthen, I thought this has got to make sense for this powerful character. I thought we've gotten stories about, you know, apprentices living on past their masters. A lot of stories of that. But we haven't really had a story of like a master losing an apprentice and looking at an older person feeling the guilt of that. And I was like, you know, him taking on Clea is like, you know, I had this whole thing mapped out in my head. Like, it made total sense. And then they showed he was with the Imperial Army or something, but not like a not like a stormtrooper type soldier, just a guy wearing a shirt, which I gotta say, it probably gives him about as much protection as the armor does of the stormtroopers. So what's the difference? And he has this King Lear moment where he's like, make it stop, whatever they're doing to those people, which is, I think, from what I have gathered, is about a year after what would have been Order 66. Here's what I'm going to say. Did he explicitly say Luthen was not a Jedi? No. Now, do you think that George Lucas, or Mark Hamill for that matter, ever intended Luke to make an attempted kill on a nephew, or like cause the ruination of like his new Jedi Order that was never
definitely not in his sleep.
No. Or in the way. I mean, Mark Hamill's gone on record like this character was one of the most optimistic people ever penned a page. He wouldn't have taken a turn like this. He was so against all of this from the start. I've heard George Lucas saying like, where are Leia and Han's kids? Where are all the... they had 3 kids and they amalgamized 2 of them into, Kylo Ren to Ben Solo. He didn't do it. He didn't put it on there. There was space in there to go back and put in stuff. And then there were things like, the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. There was space there too for things. So here's the thing. There's space to fill in gaps. And do you think Tony Gilroy wants that? Tony Gilroy, he's not. Like, in his mind, Luthen is, I don't know what he is completely, but I know that he was never a Jedi in Tony Gilroy's mind. Neither was Luke Skywalker any of these things in the modern movies in George Lucas's mind, the person who created him. So guess what? Until we get our Luthen Rael show that shows his entire life, which is probably on the table somewhere, whether it gets made or not, there's probably a dozen shows that they're at least talking about spinning off from this, because again, they learned the wrong lessons. Until they do that, or in a multiverse thing, here's my take. Luthen was a Jedi and he had an apprentice, and during Order 66 he made a wrong move, maybe even let fear grip him. Maybe there was too many and they got overrun, too many of the clone troopers. And that's where his line about being a coward comes in, because he's branded himself that, and also put onto himself that, that's what set this in motion, that he has to end the Empire. He has to end Palpatine because he knows the truth. That's the equation he wrote 15 years ago, that he's one of the only people who knows the Jedi were betrayed. They're not the villains of the universe, if you even believe in them. So he immediately jumps ship and changes his identity, blends in, probably has to like cut his hair or something, blends in to some fatigues, completely changes clothes, and takes, maybe even kills to take somebody else's position, takes that guy's name, which my thing has always been, we don't know his real name. Even if Tony Gilroy intends for him to never be a Jedi in the real world, I don't think that whatever Sergeant Lear or whatever, I don't even think that's his real name. I think that's yet another fake name that he had to assume into that. But because I think that was the sort of character we're never, like the Doctor, we're never going to get the actual truth. He does that, doesn't, just to blend in, just to slip past, but before he can get out, he gets caught up in everything. And not in a good, not like he's enjoying it or whatever, he just knows he just keeps missing his opportunity to slip out. And maybe he even starts to think like, this is how it starts. I stay in long enough, maybe I work my way up and I can stuff up from the inside. I can get enough information. I can work my way to the top. Maybe I can get a lightsaber to Palpatine's throat. And then they put him on a mission where he's watching all this killing around him of children, I assume. And that's where he meets Clea. So that's my headcanon. I'm sticking to it. I'll be making my custom Luthen action figure very soon. He's one of my favorite characters. I mean, it's like Luke and Ahsoka and Luthen. And I mean, the order shifts. Ahsoka's never going to be number one, but I do love Ahsoka. But I mean, like, Luke and Luthen.
I mean, that is a cool idea, and if that ever happens, I'm sure I will enjoy it. But I also kind of like the idea that Luthen wasn't special. He was just some guy who realizes that this is not what we should be doing, and then just tries to do right by Clea, because he knows that, hey, this is our fault, my fault. Her family's dead, her world's dead. And so he does whatever he can to, if this is the path she's taking for me to help her do that correctly.
Yeah, and I have no problem with I respect Tony Gilroy's writing for that. That's what they wanted for Rey, and that's what one of the potential storylines when it was being written by committee for the sequel trilogy was that Rey wasn't going to be a legacy character. I don't think that my thing necessarily makes him that. He is still just a random Jedi. But I think that the connection to King Lear, that like he was this, with it being, if that is indeed what Tony Gilroy was, I've heard it bandied about by a few people. That's the connection there. That's literary reference that I think maybe Generation Tech is one of the people. I think he has to come from more. And maybe it would be nobility. Maybe he's literally comes from a powerful family, if not a Jedi, if that's another storyline. But in my headcanon, being a knight or a master in a Knights Templar type order, I think is enough to say, that's like on par with someone who has so much power. Anyway, Luthen, amazing. I hated how he died. But that's war. That's the reality of it. When we got to those quiet moments, like he denies Dedra the satisfaction of taking him in and also
getting the information.
Yeah, because he doesn't know what they're capable of. I mean, he does know what they're capable of, and that's the thing, is they could put him in a state, and he doesn't know he's not what he can withstand. He's getting a bit older. It's very possible. And he also knows they have a giant religious robot with mind powers that can move things with his mind, that has a laser sword. If he was a Jedi, he would also know that they have means that most people don't know about, like mind reading. Get him into a room with Anakin Skywalker, and he could just read his mind to a degree. It's not like it's not like Professor X and Jean Grey, but there is an element of that they can pick things up eventually, like vague things, and it might be enough.
I mean, Palpatine could probably do it too, except he probably wouldn't be as nice as Jedi, where they convince you to tell the truth.
Yeah.
You just rip it from your mind.
And I mean, like even in, I think it was Return of the Jedi, like without Luke saying a word, Vader picks up that he has a sister just from his feelings and thoughts. And Obi-Wan says, bury these feelings, bury your thoughts. So just from that, he's able to pick up that he has a sister and probably would eventually know who it was. So he kills himself. Well, he kills himself, but he doesn't die, at least not immediately. He's able to be resuscitated / maintained, but it's a deep enough wound that, without intervention, he would and will die. War is messy, and that's the sort of thing that happens. I think Tony Gilroy wanted to show like the grittiness of this. It's not beautiful. It's not exquisite. Sometimes you chase after a guy for like 5 years or something, and you finally find him, and you get into a terrible fist fight, and you get a gun on him, and then the other guy's just like, "Who are you?" And you're like, "Don't even know who I am? You're everything to me." And then you get shot in the head. And that's it. And that was the end of his mom's storyline too, which, I mean, that's the other great thing about this show is I'm like, what was the point of having his mom there? What was the point of having all of like Dedra in his personal life? It's because these weren't villains. They were main characters too. They show it from all sides. And there's so much depth to that. If you think like, what was the point of that? It's because they were showing, everything. A planned genocide that started as just planned propaganda.
Yeah. To me, their story arc wasn't so much like a narrative piece, like where they go and where they end up wasn't as important as what it represented as the whole. Because, whether he lived, whether he died, didn't really matter. It's more to show what the Empire is doing and how it is affecting the different individuals on the different levels.
Do you get radicalized? Like he could have easily. My prediction was that Cyril would have become, like he was going to come face to face with Cassian, and it was probably going to be on Gorman, and then they end up there. And I wasn't expecting what did happen. I thought he's going to end up taking him in. He's going to switch sides, and that's probably what would have happened had it held on. Had somebody not shot him in the head. But they shot him in the head, and he had it coming.
I mean, that kind of shows the chaos, too, because it's like when everybody's fighting and you just see this one guy jump the guy that is on your side for sure, you don't have time to ask questions.
And they saw what went down, and that older guy knew, like, Cyril most likely had a hand in this, which he did.
Maybe indirectly, but
yeah. And it's like, I mean, he was being played too. And that's the thing, is you get manipulated. Like, watch who minds your mind, because he was being manipulated, and by his, I don't know if they were married or not, but his woman, she was, and then it shows how she took all of this, but she had been indoctrinated from a very young age as well. So,
thinking about it now, the Empire structure works on the same principle that the Sith's Rule of Two does, where you are secretly training an apprentice because you're trying to take over. And so, like, there's just backbiting and betrayals all around.
Yeah, all the time. And even when, like, you give somebody an opportunity to just commit suicide, like their boss at the end, it's like he's going to get brought in for questioning or whatever, it's like that whole unit, is like Dedra than him. Not the whole unit, but because of Lonnie, they kept him safe. They kept him undercover like that whole time. And I do want to talk briefly about everybody. Like, there's some people who understand Luthen, and there's some people who don't, and have looked at this like the whole time like, is Luthen a monster? Like, do you not know what revolution takes? You know what? Do you not know what people tried to do to get at Hitler?
Saul Guerrero says it best. Do you think me mad? Well, of course I am. Every revolutionary is a little bit mad because we are fighting for a cause that we will never see.
Yeah, revolution's not for the sane. And you have to do, he even says it in his monologue from the first season, like, I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemies. I think meaning that he has to become more like them. Now, what's Mon Mothma's strategy? And this is, you don't fully see the naivete of Mon Mothma and her other cohorts until they bring her, they have to do her extraction, and then beyond that. Because then she's like, well, but we have to make a motion in the Senate. How will we ever beat the Emperor if we don't make a motion in the Senate? What are you doing? You had somebody protecting me this whole time? I can't trust anyone. Yeah, I was keeping you alive. Like, shut up.
It's like you all were there when the Emperor rose to power.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's like the fact that you even still have a Senate is
and at that point they only will have a Senate for another year, because between the events of Rogue One and Episode 4, which is days, the Emperor dissolves the Senate. That's in the first scene with the meeting with the Imperials, as they say, like, how are we going to do this stuff with the Senate? And he's like, well, that won't be a problem anymore. The Emperor just got rid of the Senate. That's what they do.
I think he only kept the Senate so he can keep tabs on the deserters and defectors.
And you can't do it overnight. Yes, it was going to take time, like, to put these things in place, to get the Death Star built, and to create, like Luthen said, to strangle everyone so slowly that they don't even realize they're being strangled anymore. And he did things he had to do. Like, he let Anto Krieger and the 50 men die to protect Lonnie, because he was getting that information. Now, there's a little bits in there. I think we talked about in the first time, like the last time we talked about this. He got that information for Bix about that doctor from Lonnie. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of little, very subtle things. They don't really spell this out. It takes a couple of times watching this to hear everything, to get everything and put the pieces together. When him and Cassian fight about Bix, Cassian doesn't realize what Luthen's doing. He thinks he's going there to mess with her. He went there to check and see if she was doing drugs, which is what she was doing, and which something he hints that he has a history with. Then at the end of that, he tells him, like, I want her as strong as you. And then he says, like, then you help me fix this. You want my blood, you help me fix this. And at the end of that arc, we see that they have a one-way ticket in to see that doctor, and they put an end to him real fast. So how do you think that happened? They just got into an Imperial, like, building at the heart of the Empire on Coruscant without Lonnie and Luthen's help? No. Luthen put them in there. That was his caveat to them. That was his, I need Bix better. I need her past this. She's not getting better. What would give her closure on this? I know what would give her closure on this. And they did that. Everybody loves that scene, but I don't think that they really think about the larger ramifications of it, that, like, Luthen orchestrated that too. He's orchestrated so much of this. Mon Mothma's naivete, like, still right up until the end, she's like, doesn't trust, she hasn't trusted her driver for years. She hasn't trusted her husband. One of the only people she does trust is her assistant, whose name I forget, the guy from Gorman, whose mom is from Naboo. I can remember that. Can't remember his name. Then he was also on Rebels. And then she finds out that he's been working for Luthen for 2 years to protect her. Like, I love that they wrote this. I'm not mad at Mon Mothma, by the way. I think it's great that it was written that way, to show that, like, idealism and some idealistic politicians who really believe in good and are good people can be so naive that they don't realize what really needs to be done to get the job done at the end of the day. Luthen does. Is the Emperor going to be beaten with votes? No, he has total control of so much, and so much propaganda out there, and so much manipulation and brainwashings out there, that even if that is something that could bring him down, it's not going to, because he controls so many people through manipulation and propaganda. So it's like a cult.
Next, I mean, look at like what we see in Ahsoka. By this point, the Empire has fallen. The New Republic is here, but they realized that so many of these people were still Imperials, and a lot of them still hold on to those ideas.
Yep. Like, how are we supposed to function or operate without people from the Empire on every level? I don't know. Maybe take them around back of the shed and put a laser blast to their head. Teach them a lesson. How do you fix that? I don't know. It's a big galaxy. But what I do know is Mon Mothma and the other politicians didn't realize what really needed to be done. Luthen did. They needed army. They needed to rise up to fight this guy who can shoot lightning from his hands. Maybe they don't believe in that. Maybe they don't, that's not really even a factor here. That never comes up.
Honestly, it probably is, because other than the Jedis, who has seen Palpatine do that?
They haven't. It's scary and dangerous on both sides, because you see people who control a nation with a speech.
It's a cult of personality.
Yeah, that's all it takes. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too, is who died on the Death Star? Both Death Stars. Like, is the rebellion bloodless? Like, no, it's, like Luthen does these. Nobody said like, oh, Luke Skywalker is such a monster. Do you see how many people he killed on the Death Star? And Tarkin too, who I don't think human. Like, thousands? Hundreds of thousands? I mean, how many people were on the... I don't know. I don't know the specs on this stuff. I don't read like the manuals and all these things, but like, damn. But then like, Luthen lets 50 people die to protect his contact in the ISB, which is how he's able to move this, to create Yavin, to create what is going to become the thing that puts an end to the Death Star, to create this network. And people are like, he's a monster. I don't understand these people on YouTube. I swear to God.
We did the same thing in World War II, because we actually got a hold of the Enigma machine early. And then once they broke the code with the first ever computer, we could decipher their Germans' intel. But to keep them from knowing that we had that intel, they had to let some people die. They had to be real strategic on what and when they acted on that intel.
Right, yeah. You have to wait, and sometimes you even have to let your own people take the fall. And it sucks. It's messy. But that's, I think Tony Gilroy said he based everything that happened on this in something that happened historically, like The Handmaid's Tale. People are like, well, that's a dystopia. It's a pretty dark outlook for the future. And Margaret said, I didn't base anything on the future. I based everything in this was pulled from something that happened historically somewhere. So people are just, they don't realize how you do this. Like they pass a law and said, like, the courts say you can't do that. And then what are they going to do? Send the ISB to stop him? Send the stormtroopers? No, he controls everything. And let's say they did do that. He's going to shoot lasers from his hands. He controls lightning. And if that fails, he can double wield lightsabers and is way better than anybody thinks. So, because he's been in so few fights that we don't really get to see like exactly how good he is, except when he fought like Darth Maul and his brother Savage Opress to a standstill. He killed Savage in that scene, right?
Yeah, he straight up kills Savage and then makes Maul submit.
Yeah, so not easily defeated. And like I think X Ladder or something. I can't remember exactly what his YouTube's name is, but he's one of the people who is talking about he's tired of people running down Dave Filoni for like, X-Clips, Eckhart's Ladder. That's what it was. I agree, Dave Filoni, with a lot of the people in the comment section, I agree Dave Filoni needs to get it together and write better. But having said that...
How much of his hands were tied by Kathleen Kennedy, too?
That's the thing, is there's a lot of that. And now that, Kathleen Kennedy has pushed forward Tony Gilroy and was completely on board with that, now people are like, maybe Kathleen Kennedy's not so bad. And it's like, no, it's just Tony Gilroy.
Right twice a day.
Yeah, like Tony Gilroy is just that good. I want to see what she comes up with. I want to see what she writes. You know, they kind of up with the sequel trilogy in that it was written by committee. They didn't have a clear plan at all. The first movie was just a remake of episode 4. It was good. So was episode 4. It's like, you got it. The script is right there. They just put a new gloss paint over it. And come at me with this. Where were the differences? I'm not going to get into that. But anyway, then without having a plan, they just hand the reins over to somebody else and said, do what you want. Are you serious with this? Like, and that's the hubris of these people thinking that's the corporation think. And yes, like J.J. Abrams part of that. I know he wants to think of himself as a creative, and a lot of people probably think like he's a nerd just like me. He's a writer, he's a director. But to think like you could be a part of this project and like, people will throw their money at us no matter what. And you know what? They're right. They did do that. No, you proved yourselves right. But you know what? How many people are going back and rewatching them without saying like, this is not what we wanted. These are not the characters. You don't have to do the Logan thing where like your old man character is all grizzled and beat up and feels sad and everything. Like they did that with Han and Luke. One, but not both. And maybe not even neither.
Yeah, I mean, Han's believable because that's just Han.
Yeah.
But Luke, I think there should have been more optimism.
And nuance. Like, this was one of the greatest characters put to screen. The reason you should, and everyone should like Luke is the reason why everyone hates him. You know, like, I keep seeing this stuff, like people watching Star Wars for the first time, like, why is Luke so lame? Because he becomes awesome.
It's the classic hero's journey.
Yeah, it's, you know, it was the hero with 1,000 faces or whatever the thing that Lucas was reading. When he created this, you make him annoying first. You make him, you know, like kind of suck and he's not good at anything. He's not sure of himself. Then he's trying, and I say that very deliberately, on purpose. In the second movie, he's training, he's learning himself with the wizened master, but he, you know, takes a different path. And then by the third one, we get to see this massive transformation, and it's this coming of age story that takes place in like slow motion. The stories about other characters too, and these are movies, not TV shows, which is why I've always wanted a show for Luke, so that we can sit with him and we can be with him and watch some more stories happen slowly. And when people are like, oh, the whole first trilogy was about him. Yes and no, he was in it. But like Leia and Han's story is there too. Plus, they still make room for a lot of Imperial stuff. And I mean, there's like that subplot where that Ewok gets like blown up and that other Ewok like tugs him over and is like, and then that Ewok is dead and he just slumps down, and that was his best friend. That was gut wrenching. And I think people forget that we had moments like that. It wasn't just about Luke Skywalker. There was a lot going on. I mean, it's like C-3PO and R2-D2 have like a whole thing that they're just narrowly avoiding getting like completely destroyed. And my point is, we get the superficial stuff in movies. That's the thing, is like nobody wanted this show with Andor. Think about how many people you see saying like, we've had Luke's story, but let's see more of it. And let's, like let Tony Gilroy do it. What would he throw his lightsaber? I don't know what he would do. Actually, I don't think that would be a good idea. Don't let Tony Gilroy near Luke Skywalker.
Let us take a crack at it.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we could at least, with Dave Filoni's help, I could at least help guide him. Let Sebastian Stan start putting the best moisturizer, like baby skin, calf milk, I don't know what, like get it on his skin as fast as possible. Keep him as young as we can, like 1,000% sunblock. Just keep Sebastian Stan looking really, really good. And because people are like, is he too old now?
It's like, don't worry, we got CGI. Don't matter.
That too. I just don't want to have to spend the money on it. See, I'm already thinking about our production company and making this subset of Star Wars things that would easily be the flagship if it's.
I mean, we're still waiting on the funding for the Star Wars Shakespeare stage plays.
Have they not come through on that yet? So one other thing that I did want to mention with Andor, the sister thing, because toward the end, it started to look like it might have been Clea. And this is before interviews were out, because they were kind of having a bit of a moratorium on like talking about it. And then the minute that last episode aired, there was like a whole bunch of fan events and interviews, and they're talking about it nonstop and talking about behind the scenes and like stuff that didn't make it in, or filling in gaps or deleted scenes that we still haven't seen yet, but they're describing whether they were actually filmed or just written. It was really, I really thought that Clea might be your sister. And I wasn't the only one that I was I looked, and a lot of people were saying the exact same thing, like that might be the case. My thing was, I thought, as the audience, it might be revealed to us that she is his sister, but then they never find out. And do like what easily could have happened with Luke and Leia is that they are brother and sister, but everybody who knows is dead. When they find out, like when Luke finds out, it's from a ghost, and he doesn't even come right out and tell him. Luke kind of just feels it out. So this easily could have been the case, which could have been even more heartbreaking to know, like, he did find her. So then it's confirmed she's not his sister, but nobody online, this is something, nobody online is saying this. Isn't it weird that, like, she got picked up in a very similar fashion than Cassian? Like, that struck me. I was like, are they still working toward, like, that's not the same girl, but this is weird. Maybe they recast from the first season? Maybe are they pushing for that? Is that what they're doing? Is that supposed to be a sister? I didn't know. And then nobody mentioned it. So I was like, I'm dumb. That's not what happened, clearly. Everybody would have pounced on that. Like, oh, this would have been headlines. Like, Clea's Cassian's sister, but nobody said it immediately, and I was like, I guess not. And then even then it was like, okay, well, it was all that was different. It was a different situation, different planet, but an indigenous like little kid that experienced some disaster, climbed on board a ship, and then kind of got kidnapped and raised by a person who was there that was, like very,
I mean, to be fair,
exactly
though,
the same.
With how much destruction throughout the galaxy and how big the galaxy is, I'm sure that's not an uncommon story.
That's fair. Weird that it happened twice in the same show, though. Just two of the main characters. And everyone already has mentioned it. I don't know why this wasn't like talked about 2 years ago for the first season, but the woman who plays Clea, it was her first real acting job.
Yeah, that's what I was wanting to mention.
I'm surprised you hadn't already.
I was waiting for a good organic spot to throw that in, but since you brought it up, yeah, I think she did a phenomenal job in this. And I'm really curious to see where her career goes.
I mean, the way, especially when people were speculating about the relationship, especially in the first season, and not that kind of relationship. Yeah. Like, are they Jedi and apprentice? Was she his Jedi apprentice? And that's one of the things that, like, they just kind of
was it just a business arrangement?
Yeah, and that sometimes it's like she seems to kind of run the show. Like, is she the one secretly in charge? And it's like they have a complicated relationship.
In a way, she kind of was the one running the show.
Yeah, because she did like a lot of the technical stuff. Yeah. It's like when I need something done or I something up on the computer or don't read the kind of deodorant I'm supposed to get, and I pick up the wrong deodorant, and then Allison has to go out and get the right thing because she knows how to read. And I'm like, I've locked myself out of this, and I really just don't feel like sending a thing to my email and getting the thing. And then I'm like, get into this. Can you just do it? And then she does, and I'm like, yay! This is annoying. And here's the sad thing. When I was growing up in Texas, I probably mentioned this at some point. When I was growing up in Texas, we had computer labs, something that they don't have here in Kentucky now. I have heard tale that students are now being taught what computers are in classrooms. They're being told electronics exist here in Kentucky. Can you believe this? I was learning how to do animation in 7th grade.
It's like, wow, we had a computer lab, but they taught us how to do typing.
Yeah, and I was learning how to type in 2nd grade, the number 2. Then I moved up here, and they ain't have shit. And I'm being hyperbolic when I'm saying I'm making fun of, we're not Oklahoma, which is faith in education, by the way. Also, the home state of a certain craft store. So, do the math on that. Wait, you can't, because you're 49th in education. So, anyway, just thinking about, like, how I came up, and then I came here and got into music, which also involves a lot of electronics, and depending on how deep you get into recording. And then I got into art and got so far away. I haven't become a Luddite. Like, I'm not afraid of technology. It just stresses me. And the technology, even though it's become simpler, it's become more like user friendly. Sometimes it also has these ways of like circling back around to being more annoying when you like click on a link and it says, this account already exists. And you're like, yeah, I know. I'm just trying to sign in. And you're like, it's like, you can't because this account already exists. Like, yeah, it's my account. Just let me put my password in.
Or even worse, it's like your password's wrong. You need to make a new password. But then you put in the new password, it's like, that's your old one. It's like, then why didn't you take it?
Yeah, that thing I just said is a true story from last Friday. Like, I was locked out of my email, my one email that I've got. And it was like, I eventually did a loop around by saying I need to create a new account, which then took me to a page that also has a link below it that says already a member, sign in, because the other link was just a broken dead link. But that's the thing you run into. It's like, it's just stresses me beyond belief that like these things would be wrong, or I'd be wrong by typing too fast. I've got like 3 or 4 passwords at work. That's too many. I'm not an IT guy. I work at a craft store. Why do I need so many damn passwords? Anyway, I love her for that. And not just that, but like, you know, she takes care of me. And I know I make myself sound like a buffoon with that. That's kind of on purpose and funny, but I'm not as stupid as I make myself sound. You know, I could do a lot more of this. It's just, it is so stressful. And you know, there's a reason I want out of the job that I have is because, you know, we have to manage our stress better. I'm like Luthen. I don't want to become Luthen, but I have sacrificed everything.
So again, like, subscribe so that we can get money. We can put on that Star Wars Shakespeare and get Chris out of his job.
Yes. Also, just give us money. You can just send money. That's an option for you to do. And if that one guy is still listening who, for all I know, isn't Tyler, who commented on that last video, that was it the Revenge of the Sith one? Yeah. If you're still listening, thank you. This is an audible thank you for you being you, if you're a real person and not a bot or Tyler. And if you are still out there, comment again. I hope you had fun with this one, because we are not analyzing the show like everybody else has done. And I'm not saying that's better or worse or in the middle. I'm just saying it's different. A lot of other people took a very close look at the show with a microscope and picked it apart, talked about different things. I wanted to talk about it as a broader thing and do something that a lot of other people aren't doing, with elements of some of that, talking about the specific scenes. It's that big scene where she comes and gets the doctor. That's still amazing. One of my favorite bits. Or like when Cassian's in that prototype TIE fighter and just like blows a stormtrooper shaped hole with that guy with the rocket launcher, and just like boom, and then he's just gone. Like, I thought, this season's gonna be more fun. There's gonna be more lightheartedness. Nope, I was wrong on that.
I think that's why they waited to put K2 in at the end, because his sarcastic quips.
That did add. I love that. I love Tudyk as that character.
Oh no,
so good.
Maybe I should go wait on this shit.
Yeah, using that guy for a human shield, and he doesn't even need to. Like, that was crazy. I could not stop screaming during that. Anyway, the Star Wars Meg. I don't know if you ever watched Star Wars Meg. She has some good takes and makes a lot of Star Wars. Like, that's all she does. I don't listen to her as much, kind of off and on. I think she and I are kind of aligned with the stuff we like. I don't love everything Star Wars, but I do like a lot. And she was saying, like, she was going to stop. Like, she was like, this might be my last Star Wars Andor video. I don't want to talk about this forever. And I'm like, you got to be talking about it for a while. If like Star Wars is what you're doing, it's okay. She probably will never hear this, but like, take a longer look at the show. Like, there's a lot of things in here to be analyzed and discussed. If like you do a daily 5 or 10 minute.
I mean, you could take the kind of like the, what am I trying to say here? Like the there but not there scenes of Rebels crossed in with this, because it's like they're playing like tag with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even in Rogue One, you get that Easter egg. You hear like them announce like over the intercom thing, asking for General Andula, but like you never actually see Hera in the movie.
Yeah, and I want to see the original director's cut of Rogue One. I want to see what they originally had for that, because I think it was quite different. I heard a rumor, I don't know how true this is, that it was going to be revealed that Krennic was mostly cybernetic, or a lot of him had been replaced, and they were going to reveal that. There's a shot of him down on the beach from one of the original trailers that was not in the movie, because they die way up on the tower, or he dies way up on the tower.
Technically doesn't die on the tower until it's blown up.
Yeah. So yeah, even then, see, and that's another thing too, is like he was like shot not point blank, but like super close range by Andor. And guess what? Andor knows how to kill people. So I think that was there. I think whatever, I don't know in what way it was supposed to be revealed. Then there was the shot of like Jyn. They had a shot of her in the Imperial uniform, whatever it was, like in the black uniform, but there was a different shot that wasn't used in the movie. And then when like a TIE fighter was up at the tower, wasn't in there. So I do wonder what elements were put in, taken out, because they said it was a lot. That's what I've heard. And one other thing, because I don't know how much or what we're gonna be talking about next, or when we're gonna get back to Star Wars, but I heard this really cool thing, and it was on a YouTube clip. It was about the and you can read this. It's probably easily out there now. One of the earliest scripts for Phantom Menace was that Obi-Wan Kenobi was a little older, and he was a Jedi Master, and I guess maybe he had an apprentice or had an apprentice, but he wasn't with him. Him and Amidala go places, and they find Anakin. They bring him back to Coruscant, and where we meet his apprentice, or maybe his former apprentice. I'm not really sure because I haven't read the full script. I'm just getting bits and pieces. Qui-Gon Jinn. Their roles are reversed in this. And then at the end of the movie, Obi-Wan Kenobi dies. He kills him. He kills the Master. And then, in that they have that very similar moment where he asks him to train Anakin. And because he feels so guilty about his Master's death, he takes his name, becoming Obi-Wan. And that is supposed to explain why Obi-Wan says in episode 4, I haven't heard that name in a long time, because at some point he gave up that name, but it was never even really his name. So it's like this loose connection. Luke knows him as Ben and Obi-Wan and kind of goes back and forth in what he calls him. Because I think he does go back and forth with all that. Like he calls him Ben and Obi-Wan interchangeably throughout the rest of it. So anyway, I thought that was actually, people would have hated that. People would have hated that, but I thought it was a really cool wrinkle that added in this extra layer that would have been cool. And I can't remember if we talked about Sam Jackson maybe coming back to Star Wars. That's on, if that gets on the table to the point where, because I know Sam Jackson has never stopped loving Star Wars. Like he loves the prequels. He loves Star Wars so much. He's in them, and told this one guy, if you do a thing, I'm there. And he's like, what if it's a Star Wars thing? And he's like, I'm double there. So we might be getting Mace Windu, current, whatever, modern day. I would love to see that in the huge crossover thing, whatever, with Luke and old Mace Windu with the same robot hand. Brother, we got things to talk about. Your dad cut off your hand? Your dad cut off my hand! Dad, that's the same hand! Amazing. I really think, we didn't get to see enough Mace Windu. We didn't get, there's all this, legends, lore about him and all this crazy detail stuff. You were talking about that thing with, if he had trained Anakin, because he has this, special connection to the dark side, but he, is able to resist it, and it's complicated, but, kind of that.
Mace Windu is one of those characters, too, that it's maybe it's because I was younger when this came out, but he feels like one of those characters that's always been there. I always knew who Mace Windu was, even though there's no possible way. Yeah. It's why?
I think it's because of Sam Jackson being certain actors just have this ambiance of in the real world, they're in such iconic roles. He talked about when I heard him say this thing, people will come up to him and quote Pulp Fiction or something, and then he'll skip lines and go on to this thing, and he was like, I thought you wanted to run the scene with me. And I'm like, it is now my life's goal to find Mace Windu in a hallway at a convention center or an airport and just be like, I don't even know what, but pick your scene and say, just start him off with somebody else's line and let him pick it up, and then you go back and forth. What a way to, I would come back with that story. I would live on that for years. But he just has this ambiance about him, and he's just he's fun, but he is also serious. And that just sounds, banal, but he's outspoken politically and serious about those things. He's very serious minded, but he's also, told George Lucas, I could just, you just make me a stormtrooper. I'll be in the suit and I'll be able to say that one was me. And then George is like, I think we'll do you one better than that. And he's like, Jedi Council? And then there's a clip, and you can find this. It's behind the scenes thing where he's standing there as Mace Windu with George Lucas, and he's like, so, what kind of lightsaber colors are we dealing with here? And he's like, well, there's blue and green. And he's like, so no purple. And he's like, we'll see what we can do. And then he looks directly at the camera and is like, you know, like a little kid. And I was like, Sam Jackson is one of us.
I'm just
like,
saying,
you know,
the prequels were all PG-13, so I am a little disappointed we didn't get at least one mother from it.
yeah, he's just like, he feels like this timeless individual. I can't imagine a world without Sam Jackson. Like, so many, like, memorable movie moments. You know, it's like Gene Wilder. You know, it's like you could do this, like, an hour-long cut of just memorable moments with him in movies. And it's like movies that he was like a D-list, you know, like, he's not the main character by a long shot. But then, you know, like, Hold On to Your Butts in Jurassic Park. Like, everybody remembers that guy. To, you know, I'm sick and tired of these mother snakes on this mother plane. Stupid movie. But he doesn't take himself so seriously that he can't make those kinds of movies. Like, he makes every kind of movie.
He only took that role because of the name?
No.
Yeah, apparently Snakes on a Plane was a placeholder, and they were going to change it. And he's like, you change it, I'll leave.
So, you know, there's just some actors that it's like once in a lifetime. They're larger than life, but not because, you know, like Brando, you know, who's just like a dickhead and took himself too seriously. Like Sam Jackson, sort of guy. If you met him and did, you know, just like quoted his movie, he'd quote it back at you, and you're quoting back and forth because you just love cinema and you love having fun. And he seems like the sort of guy you could run up to and hug and say, like, I love your work. And he would say, thank you. That means the world to me, and mean it. And I think the world's a better place for him being in it. I wish there were more people I don't know him. I don't know that he's like that. I hope he is, and he seems like it. That grin he gave to the camera when George thought about it for a split second, because he was really, I think in another interview he said, I just, you know, this scene, there's 1 million Jedi here, and everybody's got blue and green. I wanted to be able to see myself running around in there. And also I think part of it was, you know, it's like, I'm one of the main people on the council. Like, Yoda's green, give him a green one, that's fine. But like, you know, I'm Mace Windu. He just does something special. And he does. So, a distinction. Like, now we've had white, orange.
Yeah.
Balin Skull and Shin Hati have orange. And I can't, right now the black saber is on-screen canon. We've had yellow. Did they have yellow in the Acolyte? I can't remember.
I don't know.
I think somebody did. So there's been a lot more added.
A lot of the Jedi Temple guards and stuff had yellow.
Yeah, and that's like, I want to see that in live action. I don't think that's ever been shown live action, because I always thought that was a weird thing. Like that Lucas, you know, they were working on Clone Wars, and he was still kind of a part of that, and that was canon. And the cartoon Clone Wars and the Temple guards had yellow ones, so that was kind of even shocking to see then.
Well, if it's still canon, I know it's like the Jedi counselors usually had green, the whatchamahoozits had blue, and then like either the temple guards or like the Jedi that did like the undercover work usually had yellow lightsabers. And so that's why Quinlan's and all those were yellow.
Well, yeah. I think we have enough to stop here, but I also think that Andor is something that we could come back to at any point. Like,
oh yeah, I'm sure we'll circle back at some point.
Yeah, like maybe even, I don't know, anytime. I'm down for talking about it anytime, because I have loved this show so much. It went from being not on my radar, not caring about it, not even wanting to watch it, to it being one of the best Star Wars things available / just TV in general. So good. I can't recommend it enough. And I don't need to, because everybody's talking about it.
Yeah, but I think we'll end here. If you've made it with us this far, thank you. Be sure to follow us on our social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram. And until next time, see ya.